on an all-new Dr. Phil.
After a SWAT standoff.
Police say that he held his wife and children inside their home.
Was this dad?
Did you have your daughter lick the bathroom floor around the toilet to prove it was clean?
I did instruct her to do so, yes.
A danger to his kids?
You took the dog and your son and proceeded to shoot the dog 15 times. What's wrong with you that seems okay? Let's do it.
Have a good show, everybody. Here we go.
I hate to see people suffering, and you've hurt long enough.
Stand by, Dr. Phil.
Wilson, take
I'm going to get you the help that you need.
In 5, 4,
This is going to be a changing day in your life.
go, Dr. Phil.
How you doing, guys? How are you? Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Well, it's normal for married couples to fight, to argue. But it's not normal to have your fight broadcast on TV with your husband calling the local news to talk about it.
We're fine. We just had an argument. I mean, we've been married 12 years. Like we haven't had an argument before.
Well, my guest Matt told the news station things were fine. Yet when he was saying that, he was barricaded in his home with 2 pistols, 2 rifles, and a shotgun, surrounded by over 50 police officers, 30 of them SWAT team, and plenty of ammunition to take everyone out.
Police say that he held his wife and children inside their home at gunpoint and then barricaded himself inside. Graham's wife says that her husband just snapped.
On January 31st, 2008, Matt and I got into a disagreement.
I told Mindy I wanted a divorce.
He went and got my 38, he went and got his 45. That's where I became very nervous. I texted the bishop at my church, please help me. About 20 minutes later, a police car pulled up.
As I answered the door, I came up and I pulled it open about that far. I had my hand behind my back. He asked me, is there anything in your hands? I said, that's for me to know. He's already got his weapon drawn. Like, I'm going to tell him I'm unarmed, go ahead, kick the door in. They asked if they could speak with Mindy. She went up, grabbed the kids, and out they went. Mindy was in the background telling them that I was going to kill everybody.
Matt had enough weapons and ammunition to take people out that day.
I had a Ruger 300 Winchester Magnum, an AR-15, Saiga 12 shotgun, and my 1911 45. I was astounded by the police response. In total, I believe there were 58 officers involved, and close to 30 of that number were SWAT. I would look out the window to see what they were doing, about like this, so I wouldn't present a target to them. I wasn't sure whether or not they'd fire at me or not, and it turns out I was right to do so because they had shoot-on-sight orders. I was barricaded in my house for 4.5 hours. A local news station had broadcast pictures of my home. That's when I knew the severity of the incident had escalated beyond control. Mindy, through her manipulation and need for attention, almost got me killed.
Well, Matt was charged with domestic violence in the presence of a minor and terroristic threats. Now, he spent 490 days in jail. Mindy divorced Matt when he was in jail, and he claims she alienated him from their children ever since. He says his 17-year-old daughter refuses to speak to him. His 15-year-old son is in foster care, and when his 8-year-old daughter was dying of cancer, he was kept away. He says now, even with a new baby and a new wife, his ex is still causing problems.
My husband's ex-wife, Mindy, is a master manipulator.
I found out that Mindy had gotten pregnant. I was in jail at the time. She claimed to have been raped. In the police report, she gives 5 different stories. They had concluded that she had been prostituting herself and it was consensual. I think she's such a despicable person that I don't like the idea of her still using my last name.
When me and Matt were planning our wedding, I very much wanted his children to be in the wedding.
My ex-wife Mindy is an utter control freak. Mindy absolutely uses our children as pawns.
Mindy kept his children from coming to the wedding.
Mindy has historically badmouthed me to our children. such as telling them that they could get an iPod as long as I pay my child support, then pull up to the mailbox and say, oh, no child support today. Sorry, guys. My child support is paid in full and always has been from the instant I could pay it. I am so sick of Mindy's lies.
Okay. Now, tell me why you're here today.
I want to set the record straight. I have taken it, I have taken it, I have taken it, and I'm tired.
You two are here for the same reason. He said he's here to set the record straight.
I'm here to get help for my marriage because I believe that the situation that started out with their marriage has filtered into our marriage and is causing extreme amounts of distress to the point where I feel that it's put me and my family in emotional danger.
Okay, and why are you here?
I'm here for two reasons. I have my 4 children with Matt now. Since my daughter's passing, I had 3. And my children have needs that they have from their father. And I am here to represent my kids, to be their voice, to hopefully somehow get Matt to realize that he did harm them in different ways, that there was trauma. I'm not here in any way for my relationship with Matt or Heidi.
You say they have needs from their father that aren't being met. Have you been obstructionist in him having a relationship with those children?
I want my kids to have a dad more than anything in the world.
Did you withhold them for 3 years from him and said, oh, I thought I was supposed to?
I was under the care of a therapist, as were each of my children. They still are. The mandate that I had...
That's not an essay question. You either did or you didn't.
No, I did. I was waiting for it to be a therapeutic reunification.
There was no court mandate.
So you had no court mandate to do, but yet you kept them away from him for 3 years, and then you said, I misunderstood the court. I thought I was supposed to.
Honestly, I didn't trust Matt. And my push was
let's
for
get one
a
thing
therapeutic
real clear.
reunification.
You're going to need to answer my questions. You can't just rewrite them and then answer the one you want to answer.
Yes, Dr. Phil, I kept my kids from Matt.
You 3 manipulate each other like it's a sport, and I am not manipulable. You're either going to be straight with me and there I have a chance to help you, or you're going to yeah around. Did you send fake Facebook messages to these folks pretending to be your daughter?
No, I did not.
Absolutely, she did. I've had it confirmed from 2 different sources, and just fact, I got a text message yesterday from one of your friends that confirmed that you did it to be a bitch.
No, Dr. Phil, I did not at any time pretend to be my daughter and email, text Heidi.
So you didn't send any messages to Heidi pretending to be the 17-year-old, which said, quote, my dad doesn't help us financially, and, quote, my dad abandoned us, quote. You did not write those words.
No, I did not.
With her screen name and send them to her.
No.
Can I say something about that?
Well, somebody needs to say something to me because I'm not broker much for this lying stuff, and I'm not willing to waste time talking to y'all if you're not going to tell me the truth.
Of when those messages were given and the timestamps of other messages that Mindy had, they were so close in time and they were during school hours, and your friend told me that you did it.
So, and this isn't the Mindy show. I'm going to talk to them here in a minute. I'm just... So
you're
saying that your friend,
or any of that. I'm here to help my kids, and it doesn't feel like
you're saying that your friend is lying when she tells her you sent those messages.
Well, I think
because I want to get her on the phone, Bones. I want to get this woman. I want to find where she is. I want to get her on the phone. I want to talk to her and find out who's lying to me here. Because we have a set amount of time. And if you want to run your agenda playing games, then we won't get to that. If you don't, then we can get past this. I intended to cover this in the first 30 seconds and start talking to these folks.
Okay, were there text messages sent or messages sent by my daughter? Yeah. I've read them.
We do have the friend on the phone. This is completely anonymous. I'm not going to say the name. Are you there and can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
I have one simple question for you. Did you or did you not have firsthand knowledge of and share with Heidi that Mindy sent messages using her 17-year-old daughter's name?
Yes. she said she thought it was funny.
What do you say about that, Mindy?
I never sent these messages. If you had somebody who sat there and watched me, then I would be a liar. But I'm not. Somebody says that I said it was funny.
So you didn't say this to this woman, and she's lying.
Yes.
Well, let's take a break here. Coming up, Mindy claims Matt had a history of abuse during their marriage. We're going to hear just how extreme things got from this side of the room, including why Matt's 17-year-old daughter that we're referencing says she cannot forgive her dad. All of that when we come back.
I took the dog, along with my son who requested to go, out to the desert and put her down. It took 15 shots to make it end as quickly as possible.
He gave my son the shovel and told him to bury her. My son told me that he had to collect some pieces of her to put in the hole.
Tomorrow on an all-new Dr. Phil, a daughter in danger.
I chew and spit every meal. The bags are left everywhere in her room.
A family in crisis.
You blame your wife for Emily's eating disorder.
I know what I did to her. I ruined her.
She needs serious help.
I can't go away. I can't do this.
But will she accept it?
She and I have
I didn't really ask for a response yet. This is about her, not about you.
America's most watched talk show. That's tomorrow.
When I was married to Mindy, my manner of discipline and trying to teach the kids what was wrong could be considered as demeaning.
There was a time when my 15-year-old son had left his clothes on the floor, and his father pulled him out of the shower naked, and he did proceed to spank him with the belt. There was a time when my daughter was told to clean the bathrooms, and Matt had her lick the floor around the toilet.
I did ask her to lick the floor to demonstrate to me that she thought it was properly cleaned.
My son, who was 5 or 6 at the time, was in a lot of pain from passing several kidney stones. He would beg to die. So Matt took a kitchen knife and told him if he wanted to die, then he needed to push it into his chest.
Well, Mindy claims she wasn't always aware of the abuse happening in her own home, but there's one incident involving the family dog that she says she'll never forget. Let's look at this, and then we'll talk to Matt.
In 2007, our family dog had run across the street. In doing so, knocked over my daughter and attacked the neighborhood dog and nearly killed it. I felt that my family was in danger and that the dog needed to be put down. So I took the dog, along with my son who requested to go, out to the desert and put her down. I held my pistol up against her head, and after the first shot, she stumbled down the ravine and was yelping in pain. And so I emptied my pistol, and she was still running around. And I ran back to my truck and grabbed my spare magazine. I emptied that magazine as well. It took 15 shots to make it end as quickly as possible.
He gave my son the shovel and told him to bury her. My son told me that he had to collect some pieces of her to put in the hole. My son described vividly how Crystal was crawling on the ground, whimpering, and he would just say, "Mom, I couldn't save her, I couldn't save her."
I know the event traumatized my son a little bit, but I feel that Mindy has, through her manipulative ways, sensationalized it and has used it as a control and manipulation over my son. He saved her collar, and she would take it away as a punishment. It's really despicable.
I never once took the collar away for punishment. I never once took it away.
Okay, well, let's talk about this for a minute, because I want some insight into where your compass is and where your boundaries are on what's okay and what's not. Let's see what we can agree on. What we can agree on is you decided that this dog needed to die, so you took the dog and your son and proceeded to shoot the dog 15 times.
I come from a ranching family.
Yeah, I'm a Texas boy, and there's no theory under which that's good parenting.
I agree.
Now, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. First off,
I'm not going to defend my actions.
I'm not asking you to defend them because they're indefensible, but I'm asking you to explain what problem-solving process you used in your head to make the decision to take your son and that dog out and shoot it once, twice, or 15 times.
He came up to me as I was putting her in the truck with a shovel, and he says, "Dad, I need to go. I want to go." And I thought, old Yeller, his dog, one of those moments. As I said, I come from a ranching family. It's part of his responsibility.
You don't get it even now that taking your son out and killing this dog in front of it, shooting it in the head, and then shooting it 7 or 8 more times, and going back, getting another magazine, reloading, and shooting it again, emptying that magazine into it. I mean, come on. What's wrong with you that seems okay?
If I had it to do it over again, hindsight's 20/20. It was a bad decision. I was under pressure. I'm sorry.
You agree that was a wrong thing to do?
Absolutely.
And tell me why it was wrong.
Why?
Yeah.
It's damaging to him to see his pet, something he loved and cared for.
So, who buried the dog?
We did together.
So he was involved in that as well?
Yes, he was.
It's not just shooting the dog that upset the kids. Next, we'll talk about some of Matt's outrageous discipline techniques. Did you hand your son a knife and say, if you want to kill yourself, here you go, right in the chest?
Yes, I did.
He was 5 years old.
I try very hard to understand Matt with his PTSD. However, I feel that deep down inside, there's the possibility that Matt's lack of empathy runs so deep that there's no hope. Perhaps some of the way Matt is doesn't have to do with PTSD at all, that he is just inherently a jerk.
Now, we've talked about the dog. You agree this was incredibly bad behavior.
And horrific, yes.
And you seem to have a pattern of making some bad decisions across time. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
You were arrested and had the SWAT team in your front yard. You defend that by saying she told them you were a threat, but the truth is you did get arrested by the SWAT team, correct?
Correct. I walked out.
And did you go to jail?
Yes.
Was that a bad decision? Did you manage that poorly?
That day? Absolutely. It was.
Did you say to your son, who was crying in pain over kidney stones, did you hand him a knife and say, if you want to die, just do it?
I was trying to assess whether or not he was actually serious and where he was mentally.
Did you hand your son a knife and say, if you want to kill yourself, here you go, right in the chest?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And that seemed like a good idea. Why?
Because if he actually started to do so, I would definitely would have prevented it. There's no way on earth I would let my son harm himself.
But that seemed like a reasonable way to demonstrate that he, in fact, had a will to live and was being overdramatic.
At the time, yes.
He was 5 years old.
And
had been through surgery after surgery after surgery.
12 surgeries at that point, yes.
And looking at it in retrospect, how do you feel about the viability of that parenting tactic?
Deplorable.
Okay. Did you, in fact, have your daughter lick the bathroom floor around the toilet to prove that it was properly cleaned?
She never did it, no. I remember the day and I told her, I want that floor so clean that you could eat off of it.
So you think the thing to do is tell her to get in the floor and lick up potential bacteria?
If it was cleaned properly, there wouldn't be any, but that's not an excuse, no.
Which child is this that you've duct taped to a bench?
That's our 15-year-old.
This is the one that's now in foster care. Yes. And you duct taped him to the bench because he wouldn't stay still.
She helped.
He was how old?
Oh, he looks about 3, 2.
He was 2 at the time.
He was 2 at the time. So you duct tape your 2-year-old to a bench because he won't stay put? How does that look to you now?
Deplorable.
All right, there's something that I know for sure that the 17-year-old wrote, and I'm going to share that next because I have a plan here to try and bring a hush, some peace over this unit here so these children can have some peace. Please. We'll be right back.
I made the decision to place my 15-year-old son in state custody because he has physically assaulted me on more than one occasion. He's bigger than me. He's stronger than me. When he gets angry, I do not feel that I'm capable of keeping him from hurting the other kids.
I absolutely think that if it weren't for Mindy's control and manipulations and damage that she has done to my son, there would be no need for him to be in foster care.
I think it's reasonable to say that my son would have learned violent tendencies from his father. I see similarities to the way Matt used to be and the way my son is.
My 15-year-old son has some anger issues and control issues. He's learned to manipulate from Mindy, and he's dealing with those. I look forward to taking my 15-year-old home after he's done with his treatment.
I do worry about my son's emotional and mental well-being at his dad's house.
If my 15-year-old son goes back to live with Mindy, I definitely think that his future would be put in jeopardy.
What do you say to your 15-year-old about the other kids being in the home and he's not allowed to be in the home? What do you all say to him? How do you explain that to him?
He understands why he's not in the home, and he is on a constant basis worried about his behavior towards them. He had an outburst at my daughter's birthday party, and since then has been very concerned. He holds a lot of guilt over his behavior now that my daughter has passed away. And when we talked about transitioning home, he and I talked extensively and agreed that coming home to my home with his siblings is not the right choice for him or the other kids.
When he was in my home, did you not call the police because I enrolled him in school? He was supposed to go to school. He's in school. He texted you, "Mom, I'm at school." And you showed up with the police to have him arrested and taken to DT. Nice job.
I don't feel that you need to talk to me that way.
I'm not the greatest father. I admit that. I'll accept that.
My 15-year-old ran away from his home on a couple of occasions. The school called me because they were concerned about him attending school there. They said he doesn't have the documentation, he doesn't have the things needed to enroll him. I went to the school had called the police. They were trying to figure out legally. He had no legal rights, he had no physical rights. They couldn't enroll him because Matt did not have legal rights to enroll him.
My parental rights have never been revoked.
And you let him come live with us, and you wouldn't give us the documentation so that we could adequately take care of him. You wanted to maintain control, yet you wanted him to stay at our house.
Now, Matt accuses Mindy of ruining his relationship with his 17-year-old daughter, but Mindy says, no, that's not true. Matt's to blame. Now, their 17-year-old daughter actually sent me a letter, and I want you to hear some of what she said. We couldn't tell anyone that Dad beat us so often. My baby sister knew that when Dad was yelling, she had to get a specific belt. She never grabbed a regular old belt. She grabbed the black one with the white jagged stripe through the middle that reminded me of a cowboy's because that's the belt he used to spank us. Now, my brother and I were the reason that belt was originally chosen as our punishment. We were told to go in his closet and choose a belt. As children, we picked the smallest, lightest belt we could. Our mom came in and took the belt from us and explained that the smaller and lighter it was, the more it would hurt. So she handed us the belt that haunts my dreams and rules my nightmares. I guess I could blame my mom, but she saved us from that belt many times. That's one of the things that she said. She said, when I was 11, my friend had a birthday party and wanted to go so bad, but I had to earn it. I had to clean the bathroom so well, I'd have to be willing to lick the floor by the toilet. I asked Dad what he thought, and he responded with a question of his own, whether or not I was willing to lick the floor by the toilet. In my desperation to leave and go, wish my friend a happy birthday, I did it. I knew that I had to, just like a trained dog. Sometime I wished I had to lick the seat. Sure, it would have been worse, but I think it's much more degrading to have to lower your body to the floor and lick the tile. Another excerpt, in my opinion, there is no way he will acknowledge that what he did was wrong, because in his eyes, he didn't do anything wrong. I could tell him over and over for hours that what he did hurt me, and he'd still believe that it was entirely my mother's fault. I want an apology, but I have to understand that I'm not going to get one. That's the wishful thinking of a little girl who is long dead, crushed by that black and white belt.
This is so contradictory to what how she is at our house.
Okay, well, hold on.
Please, this so doesn't involve you right now.
I have repeatedly, yes, I have apologized to her. Does it get recognized? No. Have I done it enough? Every time I go. And yes, I'm sorry. I've done it at home when she's been in my home. I don't know what else to do. The therapist told me there's nothing left for you to do. It's all on her now.
Up next, is Heidi on the verge of becoming ex number 2 for Matt? We'll find out.
Matt got so angry, he threw pottery at our fireplace and broke it. I told him that I would call the police if he didn't stop. He said to me, if you call the police, I'm going to beat the out of you.
Tomorrow on an all-new Dr. Phil.
An eating disorder.
I chew and spit every meal.
She's hoarding her chewed food.
The bags are left everywhere in her room.
You're hiding it, even though everybody knows you're doing it.
That's tomorrow.
How do you get along with Heidi?
For the most part, fine. We get along very well.
How do you get along with Matt?
It's a roller coaster. When things get stirred up, you know, weekends are mostly the time that we start butting heads. We butt heads because I have a lot of animosity towards this woman. I hate her, and I hate what she does in what she brings, the spirit that she brings in our house. I hate how she stirs the pot, and I really hate how Matt is still affected, and he brings it on me. You know, like.
But you blame her for his behavior.
Yes and no, in
because
the sense
you
that
told us,
Matt comes to me and says, I don't do crazy anymore. When you start acting rational, then I'll talk to you because I've done crazy before and I'm not going to do crazy again, which is not her fault that he says that. However, it's baggage that he brings in from that relationship, which is part of why I want this stuff resolved, because I want to have my life. I want to be me. I am not her. I would never steal our kids from him. I would never keep our daughter from him, even if things didn't work out. When Matt gets angry, he has resorted to calling me a bitch and a piece of
I don't call her the word very often. I reserve that for when I'm really angry.
When I ask Matt to clarify an answer he's given me, he takes that as I'm accusing him of lying.
After she comes at me repeatedly with the same question over and over again, I lose my temper and I yell at her to leave me alone, leave me alone, but I never get violent.
There was a time that Matt got so angry with me that he threw pottery at our fireplace and broke it in order to intimidate me, and then as he was ranting and raving, I told him that I would call the police if he didn't stop. And then he said to me, well, if you call the police, I'm going to beat the out of you because I'm not going to get arrested again unless I really deserve it this time. I do love Matt. I just fear him at the same time.
Let me ask you about something that happened, because this sequence of events is highly significant to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to know the facts about what happened here. Things were not going well without going into specifics, and that pottery started getting thrown. And this was one of the times that he threatened to beat you up.
He started throwing things at the fireplace. Then I said, if you don't stop, I'm going to call the police. He says, well, if you do that, then I'm going to beat the because I'm not going to jail again unless I deserve it. And then...
now, at this point, it was this fight that you're holding your newborn.
Yes, I had her in my arms, and he took the baby from my arms because when we start arguing, one of the really sensitive buttons for Matt is the fact that when we're arguing and I want to leave, and I generally want to take my baby with me because I enjoy having my child with me, but he gets very threatened because he's afraid I'm going to do to him what Mindy's done to him.
Did he take that baby from you and say, you are not going to feed this baby your milk?
He made some reference to that and threw the bottle of milk at me.
And you had to agree not to touch the baby?
For a while, until things calmed down and he could trust that I wasn't going to take off with her.
And he threatened to beat you?
Well, that threat was earlier that evening.
Right. I'm very concerned for you and about you.
Thank you.
Seriously, because I am suspect that you have an impulse control problem. I think you have a lot of triggers and people around that know how to push your buttons. And I think things seem like a really good idea to you at the time. And you're all in. Now,
Well,
Matt, go ahead.
adapt, overcome, improvise, and accomplish the mission.
Yeah, well, we're not at war here. This is a family.
I
You know, it's a different setting. You take that there, you do this here. Matt's plan for his 12-year-old son that Mindy hasn't heard yet. We'll talk about that yet. And I'm going to put some verbs in my sentences here about what I think needs to happen on everybody's part. I'm here with Matt, Heidi, and Mindy. And you have a 12-year-old, correct?
Yes.
And you want to file for custody of this 12-year-old, is that right?
He wants to live with us. He's verbalized it.
Let me ask you something. Heidi, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy?
I want to have a happy home.
And
we do.
Right now, you would advocate bringing a 12-year-old into this home when you have a husband that calls you despicable names, has hit you, threatened you, scared you to the point that you don't even know what the hell you're going to do. And you want to do it, why? Because you think it's a healthy environment for him to grow, or because you want to
Well, if you read the email I sent to you,
Well,
I said I have some concerns about that. And yes, I have my concerns with it right now, which is why I'm here.
Given all of the turmoil you've had with the children that you have had with Mindy, we've talked about 4 of them. We talked a little bit about the daughter that you lost to a battle with cancer, and I'm very sorry for your loss, Mindy. I'm very sorry for your loss, Matt. That's terrible.
3 weeks ago.
I know there was a lot of drama around that as well between the 2 of you.
Macy had been diagnosed with cancer about a month and a half before I was allowed to see her.
Matt had certain restrictions on seeing Macy. He was there for the surgery. When he came the next time, security was called.
Mindy made things very difficult for me to come visit my daughter.
Matt came to the hospital one time to see Macy. He had his wife, his daughter, his stepson. When they got there, Macy was admitted for infection. There were precautions on the door saying limited contact, so I stopped him.
About half the time, my visits would be either cut short or totally avoided due to what Mindy would claim to be Macy's levels are too low or she's too sick.
Anytime it comes to visitation, I think about what's best for the kids. Regardless of, it's my weekend.
About 3 hours prior to Macy's passing, Heidi and I asked Mindy to give us some personal time with Macy, and her comment back to me, "How dare you ask me to leave my daughter's deathbed?" I think she's a very disgusting person. I miss my daughter desperately. I mourn for the time that was stolen from me. I want more.
A question. What is the biggest change that you need to make to contribute to the healing of this family unit?
I need to find a way to be able to communicate with Matt as co-parents to raise our children well. Dr. Phil, I want my kids to have a dad.
Yeah.
Desperately.
What's the biggest change that you need to make in order to help this situation heal?
I need to turn off my anger. I need to get better control of myself.
What's the one thing you need to change in order to contribute to the healing of this situation? Now you got nothing to say?
No. Pretty much the same thing. Take things a little bit slower, trying to work through issues.
I think the three of you share one thing in common, and that is that you are all extremely egocentric. You run your own agenda. You look at things from your point of view, and you run your own agenda. I have no doubt that you came here today hoping I would straighten him out so he would be more relatable, he would be easier to deal with and manage.
I came because my 17-year-old daughter said, "Oh, cool, Mom, then we can tell Dad."
Yeah.
Okay, so put it on the table. All right, I don't care about my relationship with him. I don't need to ever talk to him other than, okay, our kids have a performance. Will you come? Our kids have a birthday
And the last time
party.
you told me our kids had a performance was when? Never.
They haven't
He
had
missed-
any.
Never
He missed
once.
Macy getting her
Go,
leg
please.
because he wouldn't
Any of
tell
this.
her when the appointment was.
Okay, this is, okay,
It's court
no.
order. It's Utah state law. She's required to tell me.
I will say hands down.
Every merit badge my
I
son
bring
earns,
in egocent-
everything. I should have been there, and you've stolen that from me. You stole it from me.
You stole my son's childhood.
Want to know what's coming up on Dr. Phil? Visit our website and subscribe to our email newsletter. You'll get weekly updates, life strategies, and exclusive video that you won't find anywhere else.
Plus, on drphil.com, you can see sneak previews of upcoming shows. Log on today.
Here's my point. It is not too late for these children.
Oh, but it is.
But you know what? These children didn't ask for this. They didn't buy a ticket on this train wreck. They just got put on here. And we owe it to them to declare a peace, to declare a new day, a new plan of coming up with a way so they don't feel like they're in the middle. Matt, some of the things that you have done are beyond outrageous. I'm telling you right now, in the back of my mind, I'm hoping that I don't read about all of y'all in the newspaper 6 months or a year from now, because that SWAT situation goes a different direction and you fly into a rage and kill everybody, including yourself. And
It's never been about harming anybody.
And, well, I tell you what, I've been doing this a long time, and the behaviors you are showing are antecedent to exactly that happen. It leads
That's my
up
fear.
to that
That's why
happening.
I'm here.
Okay? And so I'm telling you, that needs to get under control. And I'm going to tell you, I cannot diagnose you sitting here in this chair on this stage, But if I was still in private practice and you were in my office, I can tell you that there are some things I would have on my short list. And one is PTSD with associated traumatic brain injury. That would be on the short list of my considerations. And I think you need some serious and quality evaluation in that regard. I will fly you to what I consider to be the top center in the United States, to the top people in the United States, to help get a full evaluation, because I don't think this is just a little rage out of control. I think there are some neurological issues where you have some inhibition problems. And the good news is, you're not psychotic or mentally ill in some big crazy way, but you do have some issues that I think need to be looked at and ruled in or ruled out by a team of professionals. And that will be my gift to you if you're willing to accept that help and treatment. Because I think this situation needs a hero, and you've got training, you've got discipline. Let's point it in the right direction instead of the wrong direction. Okay? Let's get you equipped to man up, because my definition of the role of the man in the family is to be a provider, a protector, a leader, and a teacher. And I think you're doing none of those things now, and I think you're capable of doing every single one of them if you can just get the noise in your head to quieten down. And you're going to have a lot of repairs to go back and do once that's done, but I think that can happen. I think that can happen, and it's a process. Will you stay with me in this process? Absolutely. Will you support him in this process? You would support that process, correct?
Oh, 1,000%.
All right, and that's what we would do. You two have serious problems maritally, and it is not her. You don't want to start a custody battle right now. Don't do that. That is not necessary. You're not ready to do that. You may not like her values, beliefs, and assertions, but this woman loves her children. Right now, the grenade that can go off is you. And I want to get you help and get you help right now. And I want you to be optimistic about it, because reinforcements have arrived. I want to thank all of my guests today. Look, go to drphil.com if you want to know more about the things we've talked about today. Thanks for being here. We'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.
On an all-new Dr. Phil. After a SWAT standoff.
Police say that he held his wife and children inside their home.
Was this dad?
Did you have your daughter lick the bathroom floor around the toilet to prove it was clean?
I did instruct her to do so, yes.
A danger to his kids?
You took the dog and your son and proceeded to shoot the dog 15 times. What's wrong with you that seems okay? Let's do it.
Have a good show, everybody. Here we go.
I hate to see people suffering, and you've hurt long enough.
Stand by, Dr. Phil.
Wilson, take
I'm going to get you the help that you need.
In 5, 4,
This is going to be a changing day in your life.
Go, Dr. Phil.
How you doing, guys? How are you? Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Well, it's normal for married couples to fight, to argue. But it's not normal to have your fight broadcast on TV with your husband calling the local news to talk about it.
We're fine. We just had an argument. I mean, we've been married 12 years. Like, we haven't had an argument before.
Well, my guest Matt told the news station things were fine. Yet when he was saying that, he was barricaded in his home with 2 pistols, 2 rifles, and a shotgun, surrounded by over 50 police officers, 30 of them SWAT team, and plenty of ammunition to take everyone out.
Police say that he held his wife and children inside their home at gunpoint and then barricaded himself inside. Graham's wife says that her husband just snapped.
On January 31st, 2008, Matt and I got into a disagreement.
I told Mindy I wanted a divorce.
He went and got my 38, he went and got his 45. That's where I became very nervous. I texted the bishop at my church, please help me. About 20 minutes later, a police car pulled up.
As I answered the door, I came up and I pulled it open about that far. I had my hand behind my back. He asked me, is there anything in your hands? I said, that's for me to know. He's already got his weapon drawn. Like, I'm gonna tell him I'm unarmed, go ahead, kick the door in. They asked if they could speak with Mindy. She went up, grabbed the kids, and out they went. Mindy was in the background telling them that I was going to kill everybody.
Matt had enough weapons and ammunition to take people out that day.
I had a Ruger 300 Winchester Magnum, an AR-15 Saiga 12 shotgun, and my 1911 45. I was astounded by the police response. In total, I believe there were 58 officers involved, and close to 30 of that number were SWAT. I would look out the window to see what they were doing, about like this, so I wouldn't present a target to them. I wasn't sure whether or not they'd fire at me or not, and it turns out I was right to do so because they had shoot-on-sight orders. I was barricaded in my house for 4.5 hours. A local news station had broadcast pictures of my home. That's when I knew the severity of the incident had escalated beyond control. Mindy, through her manipulation and need for attention, almost got me killed.
Well, Matt was charged with domestic violence in the presence of a minor and terroristic threats. Now, he spent 490 days in jail. Mindy divorced Matt when he was in jail, and he claims she alienated him from their children ever since. He says his 17-year-old daughter refuses to speak to him. His 15-year-old son is in foster care, and when his 8-year-old daughter was dying of cancer, he was kept away. He says now, even with a new baby and a new wife, his ex is still causing problems.
My husband's ex-wife, Mindy, is a master manipulator.
I found out that Mindy had gotten pregnant. I was in jail at the time. She claimed to have been raped. In the police report, she gives 5 different stories. They had concluded that she had been prostituting herself and it was consensual. I think she's such a despicable person that I don't like the idea of her still using my last name.
When me and Matt were planning our wedding, I very much wanted his children to be in the wedding.
My ex-wife Mindy is an utter control freak. Mindy absolutely uses our children as pawns.
Mindy kept his children from coming to the wedding.
Mindy has historically badmouthed me to our children, such as telling them that they could get an iPod as long as I pay my child support, then pull up to the mailbox and say, oh, no child support today. Sorry, guys. My child support is paid in full and always has been from the instant I could pay it. I am so sick of Mindy's lies.
Okay, now, tell me why you're here today.
I want to set the record straight. I have taken it, I have taken it, I have taken it, and I'm tired.
You two are here for the same reason.